Abu Bakr got them together to send them off. Some of the companions objected. They said, he's too young. Let's put somebody older, one of the senior companions. Abu Bakr insisted, no. Rasulullah ﷺ said, he is to lead the army, he's going to lead the army. So he went out. Behind him were senior companions that had been with the Prophet ﷺ from the early days and all. They're all under his command, 16 or 17 years old at the time. It's an important point in that when some people who seek to distort the image of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ by accusing him of pedophilia, important point, because of the marriage to Aisha, right? Remember, he married Aisha when she was 7 years old. She came to live with him when she was 9 years old. So they said, hey, some Christian missionaries, whatever, to just give that sledgehammer blow in the head of Muslims. Hey, your prophet was a pedophile. It's a big thing today. They're rounding up pedophiles all over. So Muslims, usually when this comes at them, they feel very shy, very small, and want to just hide it. Hey, what to say. Some scholars, in response to this, Muslim, of some knowledge, whatever, tried to write books, and there's a book published which is saying that Aisha wasn't 7 years old at the time. She was really 16, 17. But no. The evidence in Sahih Bukhari, Sahih Muslim clearly indicate she was 7 years old, 6 or 7 years old when she was first married, and came to live with the Prophet ﷺ when she was 9. How do you deal with this reality? Right? Important. You deal with it by putting it in its context. You see, when you take something out of context, it may appear, hey, this is something not good. Muslims feel shy about it. No, put it in its context. Go around the world. Everybody was marrying what we now call kids. It's all over the world. How many rulers all over the place were doing this? Secondly, what we're talking about here is marriage. What do pedophiles do? They go marry little kids? They're marrying. They're going into areas where people are poor or whatever, exploiting them with money, and they use them and they abuse them. This is pedophiles. This is pedophilia. They're not marrying anybody. So we're talking about marriage. We're talking about a time when the average age of a person's life was 35 to 40 years old. Prophet ﷺ made it to 62. He was a grand old man. In that society, by the time you reached 6, 7, the girls, they knew how to take care of a home. They were learning these things. Not to say they were still not kids and they had kid things, but they knew how to take care of a home. They learned. This is why you had Usama ibn Zayd leading the Muslim army at the age of 16. Can you imagine, during the Gulf War, instead of Schwarzkopf or Colin Powell, they brought some 16-year-old kid from high school, put him in charge of the... Man, he'd be pressing buttons and sending, nuclear rockets, he'd be blowing the world up, right? You couldn't trust any 16-year-old kid to... Because it's a whole different situation, I mean, when you compare young girls today, they may reach their 20s, they'll be 25, still can't take care of a home. They've been pampered, mom's always doing everything, so the kid grows up, she gets married and she has to come back home and say, Mom, why do you do this? She has to come back and learn things that she should have learned growing up, because it's a whole different approach to rearing children. So you have to put it in its context. And then again, we say to them, hey, how how do you decide at what age a person may be married? They say, well, if you're in England, it's 18. In England, it's 18. Actually, they're not even talking about marriage. They're talking about consensual sex. Right? If you're 18. If you're in France, it's 17. If you're in Germany, it's 16. If you're in Italy, it's 14. If you're in Holland, it's 12. Hey, what's going on here? So what is considered pedophilia in England is considered legal consensual sex in Holland. They don't have a basis. Where do these numbers come from? What Islam has is that when that girl reaches puberty, what is puberty? Puberty is nature, of Allah's way, through what we call nature, showing us that this young girl has now become a young woman. She is capable of bearing a child. That is the natural line. And that's what Islam says. Whereas for you guys, it's just numbers. No rational basis for these numbers. So, I just mentioned that as a side point from a Dawah perspective to understand significance of Usama ibn Zayd being chosen as the Amir of the army. Anyway, so he took the major army and headed off to the north to deal with the Romans who were coming down threatening Islam in Arabia. Now, after this had taken place, tribes in Arabia who had converted to Islam and had agreed to pay zakah, they decided when the Prophet ﷺ died, hey, we don't want to pay zakah anymore. For them, they understood zakah to be tribute, as the conquering Romans or the Persians in the past, when they would conquer an area of Arabia, the tribes there had to pay tribute. Everybody had to come up with some money, to pay the conquerors. This is called tribute. So when they converted to Islam and they agreed to pay zakah, they considered it like tribute. So now the ruler, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, died. We're not obliged anymore. Right? So they came, they said, hey, listen, we want to be excused from zakah. We want to be excused from zakah. So Omar said, hey, listen, Abu Bakr, let's excuse them. Or if they're Muslims, maybe they're not making the zakah, but they're doing everything else. Right? Abu Bakr said, I will not make any distinction between salah and zakah. If they paid a hobbling cord's worth of zakah in the time of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, they're going to pay it now. What is a hobbling cord? A hobbling cord is a loop of rope, circle, which the Arabs, the Bedouins, when you're traveling on the desert, you carried with you. If you stopped, because not many trees on the desert, if you stopped, then what they would do is they would bend the leg of the camel back, one leg, and they would wrap this circle of cord around the knee of the camel. They call this a hobbling cord. It hobbled the camel, meaning that the camel now could not run away. Because that was, of course, critical. If you got off your camel and you didn't tie the camel, he is gone. That's the camel. They'll just fly out of there. And you're left in the middle of the desert. That's it. You're dead. So critical to carry your hobbling cord. Now, what they did, that hoop, they twisted it into a figure 8. They put the two circles together, and they used to carry it where? On the head. You see the Arabs wearing that gutra, that scarf-like thing with the two loops of black. That's what it is. I mean, to carry it, what was a good place to carry it was on the head. Why? Because when you're flying along on your camel, if you don't have something to hold your gutra down, it's going to fly off. So they used it to hold down the gutra, the scarf. Right? Of course, they're driving Mercedes and still wearing it, because this is tradition now, right? It became tradition, no longer serving that purpose, but that's the origin of the, they call it iqal. The iqal, right? Anyway, why did I learn that? I learned it because when I was giving da'wah, me and a group of brothers were giving da'wah to the Americans after the Gulf War. We're involved in a da'wah program. Alhamdulillah, over 3,000 of them accepted Islam from our area. And the Americans used to ask about everything. They wanted to know, what was this? What did this mean? Why do people do this? And that's one of the things they used to ask. Why are they wearing this thing around their head? So I had to go find out because I didn't know. I asked around until finally I got that information. Anyway, the point is, Abu Bakr said, if they paid the value of that cord in the time of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, they're going to pay it now. Omar and the others were saying, hey, the army has gone to the north. We don't have that many people. These people are threatening us. If we don't let them off zakat, they're going to attack Medina. Abu Bakr said, we'll fight them. We don't have. He said, if you're not coming with me, I'll go fight them myself. He is 63 years old. He walks out, he calls for his horse, and he's going. They ran out. Okay, Abu Bakr, inshallah, we're with you. So they prepared to do battle with these people. These people were joined also by those who accepted Islam, jumping on the bandwagon, so to speak, right? Islam was getting strong. They saw, hey, better we join the winning side. So they became Muslims. Now when Prophet ﷺ died, these people who were rejecting zakat, they were a large group. Islam is weak. Jump on the winning side, what appears to them to be the winning side. So they joined up with these who refused to pay zakat. Furthermore, you had some false prophets. You had Musaylama from the tribe of Hanifa in the region of Yamama in Najd. He claimed prophethood. And even from the time of Prophet ﷺ, prior to his death, he had sent a letter to the Prophet ﷺ, saying from Maslama to Prophet of Allah, to Muhammad, Prophet of Allah, let us agree to divide up Arabia between the two of us. Half for you, half for me. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ sent back a letter to Musaylama, which means little Maslama, the liar, Al-Kadhab, from Muhammad, messenger of Allah. No way. Okay. So after he died, then this person now had the impetus. People from his tribe joined up with him, and he even claimed he was receiving revelation. And in the south, in Najran, you had another individual from the tribe of Ans, called Al-Aswad Al-Ansi. He also claimed prophethood. And not to be outdone, you also had in the north of Arabia, from the Tamim tribe, you also had Sajah, who claimed prophethood, or she was a prophetess, female. Right? So followers of their tribe, they joined up with them. Eventually Sajah and Musaylama, they joined together, they got married, the prophet and the prophetess, taking on the Muslim state, right? And the Muslims fought. The fighting continued. That this is all within the first year, and those wars are called the wars of apostasy, or Hurub al-Ridda. Right? The war